Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Good evening, welcome back to All for United. Welcome back to Timeline Talks, first show I've done of these in a number of weeks. I know Mark's been covering for me, but yeah, I'm back, whether you like it or not. Someone else who's back, who we haven't seen in a while, is Henry Bartlett. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Well, footballing terms, not great as the rest of us, but yeah, on the other stuff, I'm all good, man, all good.
Yeah, resident commenter John's here as well. John, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me again. And like Henry's not been great football-wise, but general-wise been okay, thank you.
No, we've set a bit of a precedent for the rest of the episode there, because obviously it's not a great week for United in terms of results, and it's looking like it's going to get even worse off the pitch. Now, it was something of a nothing comment made by Rangnick. We'll start with his little dispute that is maybe going on with Ronaldo at the minute. Now, his comments were, I'll try and get them up in a second, but he basically said, you know, we're not taking enough chances. It's not just a criticism of Ronaldo, but the attackers need to score more. Now, Ronaldo hasn't scored in over a month, so I think it's fair to say that was aimed at him slightly. And then that comes on the same day where news is breaking that Ronaldo's had crisis talks with his agent about possibly getting a move in the summer. So, Henry, I'll come to you first. What are you making of the whole situation?
Well, I think it's easy to turn on players when journalists come out with all this kind of stuff. I'm not sure entirely what to make of it, if I'm being honest, because journalists keep coming out with the squad are unhappy, or the manager's doing this and they're unhappy with the way that he's treating them and how he wants to train. I wouldn't read into it too much. I wouldn't believe everything that a journalist says, because the likelihood is they're going to put this out a month later than the original story was, just because they know that it'll get traction, especially around the time that we're not scoring many goals. The Ronaldo crisis talks, again, I wouldn't read that much into it, because he's going to want to win things. That's what we said when he joined. He's going to want to win trophies. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be in a side that scores goals and that wins games and that is challenging for the title. So that's nothing new, really. So they're not really crisis talks. He will be speaking to his agent day in, day out, saying, I'm not sure about this. Probably. I don't know for definite, but a player of his quality doesn't want to be challenging for top four. And when a manager comes out and says that specifically, that top four is the aim, and that we're at the FA Cup, Champions League, I mean, we're dreaming if we're going to win that. So yeah, he will have conversations, but I'm not sure whether it's got to the stage of him definitely discussing about leaving the club, or he's loyal to United. He has been for his whole career. I know he left, but he's always had a soft spot for the club. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it. Rangnick will say what he wants to say. I don't blame him. We're terrible at finishing recently. I don't know what it is. Some of the players just seem to take a touch and shoot rather than playing the easy square ball, which there is. It's just not clicking. The one thing I will say is people are reading way too much into these performances. The performances have been good in themselves. The second halves of games, though, we played like we're 3-0 up when we're not. That's the problem we've got. We need to go and get those extra 2 goals, and then you can play average. You can play like you're playing for a draw in the second half of games, because you'll be way clear of the other side. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it, and it all gets a bit chaotic, especially when it's United, because journalists can get clicks. That's their job. So and they know that. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, John, I'll come to you. See, I'm liking the sort of lax approach by Henry, not believing everything you hear, but you can sort of put 2 and 2 together, can't you? Ronaldo started off very well at United. He's scored a lot of goals so far this season. He's already scored 14, which is the highest in our team. But his form has tailed off a little bit. You can feel the fans not turning on him, but they're starting to see that he isn't the player that he once was. And I think Ronaldo's also seeing that United aren't the club that they once were. So is it feasible to see a possibility where he leaves Old Trafford this summer?
Yeah, I think it's possible he could leave. I do agree with Henry. I'm not sure he's decided to leave yet because we all know he's the ultimate professional. And like you say, he wants to win things. The season's far from over. We all know he comes alive in the Champions League and we're still in the Champions League. And, I'm not sure it. I agree with Henry. I'm not sure it's completely true at this moment that he wants to leave. I think, like Henry was saying, that in terms of the stories, whether it's been held back for a while because obviously he had a poor game against Middlesbrough. He then didn't start against Burnley, which he won't be happy about. And in terms of his general game, I think in terms of his transfer, United weren't planning for him to come in when he was. I think a lot of it had to do with the rumours whether he might join City or not, and that's why we brought him in because we, whether he would have joined City, we don't know, but it would have looked bad on the club if he hadn't done so. The club probably panicked to bring him in. In terms of his overall play, I did some research because, like you mentioned, he's scored 14 goals this season, but you just look at where the goals have come. He scored 6 goals in 5 games in the Champions League. He scored 8 goals in 19 games in the Premier League. And to think that he's only scored 2 more goals in the Premier League compared to Champions League and played almost 4 times as many games, that does show perhaps that maybe the Premier League might be a challenge for him. Obviously, he's been a fantastic player, but we all know that his best days are behind him. So, yes, I wouldn't believe that he's made a decision to leave now. But do I think it's conceivable he could leave in the summer? Yes, I feel certainly if we don't get in the top 4, I think he will. Possibly if we only finish in 4th place, he might think, well, this team ain't going to win anything. I might move elsewhere. So we'll wait and see what happens. So, but yeah, I wouldn't rule out him leaving in the summer.
It's fair enough. It's fair enough. Well, listen, Henry, I wanted to ask you this because obviously you've not been on here in a while. You've not been able to voice your opinions on it because, like I said a minute ago, Ronaldo's form has dipped a little bit. Obviously, he started the season very well, scored pretty much all of his goals in the first half of the year. Is there something to be read into this as to why Ronaldo isn't playing well, in your opinion? Obviously the team aren't playing great, but they haven't all season either. So what do you think is the reason behind this? Because he seems a shadow of the player who was even 3 or 4 months ago.
Well, the one thing that I would say is, and fans will read into the fact that he's not scoring, etc. And is he really trying? He's walking off the pitch early, all that stuff. But I think that it's very convenient that this has come at a time. This one poor season in terms of his standards has come at a time when he's come back to United. The rest of the seasons that he's had have been top quality when he's at Juve and Real Madrid, and it's because he's around top quality players there, experienced players. He knows what he's going to get at those other clubs. Whereas at United, I think he's come into a dressing room that's a bit unsettled. There was obviously this sort of belief that we were going to win the Premier League at the start of the season, because of the Varane and Sancho signings as well. But there has always been gaping holes in this United side. Post Sir Alex, even under Sir Alex, there were gaping holes in the side. He was just such a good manager that you can kind of cover those up. But yeah, I think it's very convenient that this has come at this specific time that you started playing poorly. I think it's the team. I wouldn't pin this on one player, especially someone like Cristiano Ronaldo. I keep seeing all this this kind of slander on social media saying that, he's not up to it. And then, he walks off and doesn't clap the fans and stuff. If I'm correct in saying, he never really did that in the first place. But I don't think it's like a genuine disrespect to the United fans. I don't think he's pointing at them and going, you lot are the problem. He's not. He's just upset that we're not winning games. And, he's probably annoyed that he didn't start against Burnley. And that Cavani put in a stinking performance. It was horrendous. It really was. So he's probably angry at that he had to come on and try and, rescue things in the last few minutes. So it's not on him. It's not on any specific individual, really. The team as a collection are a bunch of whinge bags. They're a bunch of moaners. They complain about everything. They're work shy. So, if you've got an experienced player that comes into that dressing room, think of any player. Name a top player, James. Name a top player. Just any other world class.
Mo Salah.
Mo Salah. Do you think Mo Salah would come into this team and completely change the way that we are? Completely change the way that we're going? Do you think that he would revolutionise the side to the stage where we're challenging for the Premier League?
There's a slim possibility that, Bruno Fernandes did sort of that, not to the extent, but obviously had more work to do. But it's possible. But I completely understand what you're saying. It won't be easy.
If you're saying it's a slim possibility with one of the best form players in the world, best form players in the last 3 or 4 years, that we could challenge for the Premier League, then I think that answers the point. That this isn't on one player coming in and, Ronaldo's not going to score the goals if he doesn't have the service to score the goals. Simple as that. He can't run. He's not a really good technical player in terms of dribbling and ability and running. He's old now. He plays in the 18-yard box. That's what he does. So I think it's ludicrous, this criticism of him. It's not his fault. It's really not. He's just come to the club. We're on a downward spiral, and I think that will continue if we don't get our act together.
Well, John, I wanted to build on the point that Henry was making there. Then obviously the fact that Ronaldo's come here. At the end of the season, Ronaldo's really struggled when he's come back to here, and it's probably more to do with the state the club's in than the state Ronaldo's in, if that makes sense. So is that worrying for you going forward, that if we can't make it work with one of the best players to have ever played, what hope do we have moving forward?
Yeah, it is a worrying situation. I agree with Henry. Our problems are far bigger than Ronaldo. Like I say, I do think his signing maybe did unbalance the team slightly. However, without him, we wouldn't be in the Champions League probably. So it's one of those things that we all know that we've been crying out for defensive midfielder, for example. I'm not saying that would solve all the issues. It wouldn't, but it goes to the point where we don't have a balanced team. And the fact that Henry touched upon, players shooting when they should square it, we're very much an individual. We don't play as a team, we play as individuals. That's a big problem. And the fact that, when he gave his interview a few weeks ago about, young players not going up to him to learn from him. And, it is a big worry because he is one of possibly the greatest player ever, certainly one of them. And if you're not willing to learn from him and, give him the ball to, score the goals for us, then, you're going to have big problems. And I think our problem is we're not actually a team. We're a team of individuals. A lot of players play for themselves, and there are times where we don't know what to do when we have the ball. I think in the first half, so the last couple of games, we have lots a bit more of a team, but then we don't continue it for 90 minutes. And it's almost like you're putting 11 strangers together to play, yet we just don't know each other's games that well. And that is a big worry, that we're not willing to learn from him. We don't know where a lot of the players, like maybe Pogba, might be the type where he could find Ronaldo, and we're not playing to his strengths, and we're not playing to other players' strengths, and it's a big worry going forwards.
We've actually brought me nicely onto my next point then. Obviously, it's sort of been brought up by Brian here as well, in terms of the way that we're playing. He said there we're playing as individuals, but obviously the last 2 games in particular, I think as a team they've played really well. There's been a lot of chances created. Obviously, a couple of harsh calls from referees that we haven't got time to really discuss. But Henry, just moving on, is Rangnick sort of a manager to take us into a period of stability like we thought Solskjaer would? Is he good enough? Because we've seen he is now having a positive effect on this team. This is probably the best football we've played all season, albeit it's not at the level that we want to be, but it's still the best that we've played all season. There's been a progression. They're playing more as a team. They're creating more chances. Is it just a case of getting a manager like Rangnick, like Ten Hag, like maybe Pochettino, and a few of these problems will disappear?
Well, there will always be an underlying problem at Manchester United, and that is the Glazer family. You know, they're not going away anytime soon. They see the club as a commercial asset, and they're businessmen, so that they're not going away anytime soon. So you can paper over a few cracks, and this is one thing that I've always thought when it came to new managers coming in, especially with the switch at United. This is what competence looks like. And I know it sounds disrespectful to Solskjaer, but this is what competence looks like when it comes to managing. We look like an organised side, like on and off the ball now. I'm not seeing the consistent tactical mistakes that I was under Solskjaer. Even in his, first year or two, we were still seeing those little weird tactical changes, not making subs until really late and playing with a disconnected midfield. You're seeing these little things of almost inexperience. I know he's been coaching for 10 years or something, Solskjaer. But the job just wasn't for him in terms of how much you have to do in terms of preparation and, with the squad itself. And then, then you come on to the players' attitudes, etc. You can only do so much with these players. Some of them are just not up to it. It's as simple as that. And Ollie's man management, it was praised for so long. But it turns out the players are just work shy, and he was letting them get away with it. And as soon as they have to do some hard work, it's like, oh God, this is such a drag. We're on 150k a week, and I'm really struggling to train in the dark. So all these problems, they can be rectified by a new manager. We need a director of football. I don't want Rangnick in charge of this side for the next few years. I don't want it to happen. I know some people saying, well, if we get quite far in the Champions League and then get top 4, do you think he should get a chance? No. His job should be as a senior member on the board, telling those idiots what to do. He's done it at Leipzig. He's done it at Salzburg. And look at how successful they are now. Look at their model. So if the owners were smart, they'd put him upstairs, because their model is spend as little as possible when it comes to bringing players in, bring through youth, and create a quality side. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that Rangnick's exact forte? Isn't that what he does? Isn't that what he's done at Leipzig and at Salzburg? He's brought through youth players. They buy undervalued players, bring them into the side, and make them a lot better. So that's kind of what he's done for his whole career. So yeah, I would put him upstairs. But some of the players need rid of. The problem with the games is there are little mistakes that are costing us games. Harry Maguire getting turned inside out by a 6'6" striker. I'm sorry. Wout Weghorst turns like a boat. He turns like a canal boat. And then you got Maguire getting spun inside out. Not good enough. So the games are being, won and lost with individual errors. It's simple as that. So, yeah, they can be rectified, but the players have got to be on board. And I don't want to see any more hero ball as well, which we saw so much under Ollie, of players just hoofing it long and hoping that something's going to happen, because that won't work. But yeah, there's a long way to go, a very, very long way to go. And we've got to get a good manager. But I don't trust the board as far as I could throw him.
Well, John, I wanted to come to you to build on one of those points made by Henry. Obviously, I'm taking a few points from all across what he just said, but obviously we're talking about man management, talking about Rangnick. I think after a difficult adjustment period where a lot of players seemed unhappy, I think we're seeing the evidence now that they're starting to buy into his methods. They're starting to respect the way he man manages a squad. He doesn't pull any punches, does he? He's happy to say it how it is, whether that hurts people or not. So do you think, assuming we don't keep Rangnick on, as Henry said, he doesn't want to see Rangnick stay on. I don't know how you feel about that, but if he doesn't, do you think he's set a precedent for the sort of manager that we need to bring in? Someone who personally is like him, who has an ability of sort of rallying troops and getting them to do exactly what he wants.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think Henry's point about Solskjaer, what I would also add about Solskjaer was that, don't get me wrong, I love Solskjaer, but he was too nice to a lot of the players. He'd cover for them when they deserved a bit more criticism than what he was willing to give them, acting like their best friend and protecting them. But sometimes you need tough love, and I think Rangnick, when you look at his press conference, he is willing to be open and honest, and I think that's quite refreshing. And I think in terms of my view about what should happen with Rangnick after, I agree. I don't personally think he should be managed going into next season. For me, he needs a specific role going upstairs. The one issue I have is how much power will he actually have? And for me, whether it's Ten Hag or whether it's Pochettino, the role Rangnick has is almost as important as what the new manager is in terms of like making decisions, bringing the right players in, getting rid of ones that you don't need. And I think that's what ought to happen. And in terms of if that does happen, then yes, you need a manager who'll bring a philosophy. Obviously, Ten Hag and Poch are the best ones for me. I think if you get the right structure in place, for me, Ten Hag will personally be my personal favourite one. But even if it's Pochettino, well, I'm not his biggest fan. I will certainly support him if we get the right structure in place. And it will be a test also for Rangnick in terms of like what power he has, because I'm almost certain the board want Pochettino to be the manager. I'm almost certain, but we all know Fergie's a big admirer of him and we've been wanting him for a long time. But I'm pretty sure Rangnick will want Ten Hag. I think it depends very much on how much power he has, how much influence the manager will have in terms of like players he can bring in, he can offload and that kind of thing. We do know that Woodward's gone now, and Richard Arnold wants, well, from what we believe, wants to delegate some of the footballing matters and that. So we'll have to wait and see. But yes, you need a manager who will bring his own philosophy, will be allowed to develop the team in his own image. And you want a manager, like you say, under Rangnick, we're starting to see improved performances, not necessarily results, but improved performances. And I think the way we're playing, like, that starts 70 odd shots past 3 games and we've scored 3 goals. I think there'll come a game where we do finish a team and we'll probably score 4 or 5 against the team the way we're playing at the moment. But I think you've got to pick a manager who is the closest thing to what Rangnick's trying to do at the moment. And so we'll wait and see.
I completely agree. Well, I'll move on to my last topic. Obviously, it's not going to be a particularly long episode tonight. There's not a raging amount to talk about, given that we're just in the weird period between games. But last thing I did want to touch on was there's been a lot of sort of outrage on Twitter today, particularly because Rangnick has confirmed that Maguire's going to start tomorrow again, despite a poor performance. Henry, I wanted to ask you this. Obviously, we've just spoken in detail about how Rangnick's not afraid to, not hurt people, but upset people with things he says, things he does. And yet we're still seeing this thing of like the club captain Maguire seems undroppable when he's fit. Is this a frustration for you? Is there something more that we're not seeing? That maybe the fact that Maguire's the record signing, he's a big commercial asset. Do you think these things are starting to come into play with the fact that Maguire is undroppable at this club?
Just capture that last sentence you said. They see him as a commercial asset and he's the club captain. Now, if you think that Ralph Rangnick is happy about Harry Maguire starting games week in, week out, I think you've got another thing coming. I don't think he wants Harry Maguire starting, if I'm honest. I think this is a decision from the board. It's remember when Chelsea signed Kepa and he was having absolutely howling performances, and everyone's going, why isn't he getting dropped? He had like a few months of terrible performances until they finally did drop him. I think this is coming from the board. I really do. Imagine you've got your £80 million, your record signing or close to your record signing on the bench. Your club captain on the bench. No, he shouldn't have been club captain in the first place anyway, but it still sets a pretty damning example of Manchester United as a football club at the moment in terms of, where we're at. So, the players are not seen as players by the owners. And I don't know how many times people need telling this, because I see so many idiotic fans on Twitter. The players are commercial assets. Why do you think we haven't signed a defensive midfielder since Matic, I think? Wasn't that like 4 or 5 years ago? Why do you think we haven't signed a defensive midfielder? Because he's not a commercial asset. You can't get a player in unless it's Declan Rice or something, which you'd have to overpay massively for anyway. You can't get a poster boy in. Zakaria or Kamara. Are they going to be a commercial asset to the club? Are they going to come in? Are they going to sell shirts? Are they going to get more sponsors on board? Probably not. So they'll probably be thinking, why would we sign X player if they're not going to bring X amount of money? If they're not going to bring in the money that we paid for them, back into the club, why we go for him? So Maguire's he's another one. He's a commercial asset. They see him as, dollar signs and not a player. And Rangnick will probably be being told right now, you have to start him. You have to keep starting him and hope that something clicks. And the reality is, Maguire's in poor form, but he's not that good. He's just not that good. I'm sorry. He's not. You got Rafael Varane next to him probably thinking, what on earth have I come into? I've gone from playing with Sergio Ramos, who's a serial winner, multiple Champions Leagues, multiple league title, multiple cups. And he's probably thinking, what on earth? I've got this massive fridge next to me who can't turn and, can't play a 5-yard pass and trips over his own feet. He's an absolute garbage. I'm sorry. He's just garbage. So if we paid 30 million for him, maybe he'd be on the bench. But we paid 80 for him. 80 million of the Queen's finest silver was spent on that pile of crap. So you can't drop him. You just can't. He's too expensive to drop. And it sets a bad example for the rest of the club. And again, if he's on the bench or if he's not in the squad, more pressure on the owners. Why on earth did you spend that money on him? How on earth have your scouts picked out every single scout that worked on the deal for Harry Maguire that said he is a good value for 80 million should be sacked, should have been fired on the spot, because that is ludicrous. It's idiotic. So, you hit the nail on the head, mate. It's down to money. It's not down to players, and player power and ownership power is more important to the club than anything else. So, a bit embarrassing, really. You're on mute, mate.
Good job, you said something. Yeah, John, just to finish us off then, obviously going along those lines, obviously it's a bit different because he's not captain, but you look at another player that was bought in that window in Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Now, he cost £50 million, and Ralph Rangnick's not hid his intent to drop him at all. As soon as he could do it, he did, and he's not come back in since. Now, I get injury has had a little bit to play with that, but he's fit now and he still can't get a game. So do you think we'll get to a time where Rangnick will just say, enough is enough, I'm not going to keep these players to the detriment, keep playing these players at the detriment to my team? Or are you on the other side of the coin where you think, Maguire is a good player, he's proved he's a good player, and maybe he just needs time and consistency to get out of this bad run of form?
Yeah, I think I personally think Rangnick thinks his best centre-half partnership is probably Varane and Lindelof, personally. Wasn't it that rumour from, I know, countries with us, Graham Bailey, a few weeks ago about him going to the board and mentioning that he wanted to get rid of potentially Wan-Bissaka, Maguire and Shaw. I think he has dropped sure. I do remember that Maguire, he was on the bench for all the Aston Villa League game, and he only came on against Brentford, and then of course he came back into the team against West Ham, wasn't it? When Lindelof was given compassionate leave after the break, and so who knows whether Lindelof would have started that game. But I do personally think that it might get to the point, if he's continuing the way he is, I do think he would have been dropped if he wasn't the United captain. And personally, I think it'll get to the point where, if he continues the way he is doing, unless, like Henry says, I think the club are praying that he can turn it around, he can improve this second half of the season. And, it wasn't a great performance from him against Burnley. And I just think that there will come a point with Rangnick where, if he keeps doing it, I do personally think he'll have no choice but to drop him. I'm not saying it because I don't like Maguire. I do personally like Maguire, but he is out of form, and he has been virtually the whole of this season. And I think he is under pressure to pick him personally, but I think there'll come a point where Rangnick might say enough is enough, and he'll probably go to his preferred partnership in Varane and Lindelof personally.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Well, I'll end the show on saying that I was looking the other day, and his transfer value now, according to Transfermarkt, is £41 million, which to the Glazers, half of what they paid, that's nowhere near enough. So you can sort of understand if they're trying to play his transfer value up a little bit by keeping him on the pitch. But I'm going to end there.
Can I just quickly mention something?
Yeah, go ahead.
The elephant, the big elephant that's been in the room for the last few years at the club. The ownership have decided finally to bring in someone that is a footballing man. And the more and more we hear, the less power he's going to have at the club. He wants to make these decisions. He wants to bring in X player in the summer. And, he potentially wants Ten Hag, but the board are going to go with Pochettino. What is the point in bringing someone in if you're not going to listen to them? What is the point in bringing? Is it just to appease the fans? Are they going to bring someone in just to appease the fans so they can go, well, we did what you asked us to do, but we're completely ignoring the important part, which is basically let him do his job. The ownership are so hell-bent on having, their decisions stand in the club, regardless of what everyone else wants. And if Rangnick doesn't get the manager that he wants in the summer, when he's trying to rebuild the club, he'll walk. He'll just go, all right then, see you later. So I can't understand the point of bringing someone in on a multi-million-pound contract that Rangnick is per year and not letting him do his job. If he wants Ten Hag, give him Ten Hag. If he wants Poch, give him Poch. If he wants another manager, give him another manager, for God's sakes. I'm seeing Luis Enrique, etc. Whoever he wants, allow him to have a working relationship with a new manager that comes in, because we could finally get the trophies and the success and the squad that we actually like, because this squad is the most dislikable squad I've known in the last 10 years. I hate it. I hate half of them. They're all miserable gits at training by the sounds of it, and they don't want to work. Seriously, imagine turning up to your job, and going, so I know you do stuff with radio, don't you, James? Imagine turning up to your job and they go, here's your work, and you go, I'm not doing that. I'm leaving in an hour. See ya. They'll go, all right, then you're fired. As most of these players should. They should be sacked on the spot. If they weren't on £1 million contracts, etc., if they weren't on 150k a week or 200k a week, they would be sacked on the spot. So I'm tired of this nonsense at the club. The players are embarrassing, and we're being shown up by our two biggest rivals. Liverpool and Man City are an example of how to run a club. You don't necessarily have to spend ridiculous transfer fees. You have to have a kind of build, an academy, a really good academy, which we got a decent one. It's okay, but it's not churning out the players that Chelsea and Liverpool and City are in terms of first-team players. It's not. So when are they going to wake up and realise that this isn't working? It's been 5 years without a trophy now. Imagine if it goes 10, 15. Imagine if you go to what Liverpool happened, don't win a Premier League in 30 years. Because that's the way it's going with these guys. At the moment, the squad is not on an uphill turn. And then you've got Champions League winners, you've got Ronaldo, and you've got Varane. Are they going to be not going to be around for long, are they? They're not going to look at this squad and go, I know for a fact that I'm going to win things here, when a club won't fork out £5 million to sign a defensive midfielder. Are you kidding me? They're not going to look at the side and go, yeah, all right, that looks like a winning side to me. So the Glazers are making an absolute howler of this club at the moment. And the fans, some of the fans are getting on board with it. Bring through the academy players on. Ahmad should be in the first team. Mejbri should be our replacement for Pogba. Are you kidding me? Whatever drugs these lot are taking, I want some of it because it makes you delusional. You want to replace a World Cup winner with Hannibal Mejbri, who was on the bench for Tunisia for half the African Cup of Nations. Are you mental? I'm sorry, it's nonsense.
It makes you wonder how much have they claimed from January sales? I mean, we somehow managed to get, what was it, 10 million for Pereira?
They're raking it in, and they've got a sell-on clause from as well. They are raking it in. They've taken £11 million out of the club in the last month. And I'm hearing people say, Amad Diallo has one good game at Rangers. Oh, he should be starting on the wing. Are you actually out of your mind? I'm sorry. Rangers is League One standard, maybe Championship at a push. And you're saying, oh, stick him in the first team. Are you crazy? So they're pushing this narrative to try and get the fans on board because we'll let you have the youth crap. I see people, get rid of Shaw and Tellez and bring in Alvaro Fernandez. What? You mad? They're talking about Hugo and McNeil being on the bench for the club. They're playing in the under-18s. 20 scoring penalties in the 21s. Seriously. They drive this narrative so that we don't have to spend as much money, so the fans will be suckers for it, and they'll keep doing it. They'll keep churning these youth players through, saying how fantastic they are. But the problem is, take the model from Liverpool. Send out Harvey Elliott on loan to Blackburn for a year, has a fantastic season, comes back, plays in the first team because they know he's good enough. Take that model, loan all these players out, let them have a year, and then you'll find whether they're good enough, rather than just chucking them in the first team and going, there you go, it's yours. Mejbri comes back from being on the bench and is now going to be in the first team squad. It's utter nonsense. It's garbage. And then, the Pogba's going to leave, but that's fine. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Until the last two games, we need to.
And then Lingard stay as well.
Lingard is. There's so many little narratives. People are sorry for Maguire, but Martial was holding the club hostage. Same with Lingard. Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? These people, it's garbage. And as long as some of the fans are suckers for it, the Glazers will be laughing straight to the bank. So fans need to get off their asses and take their head out of the sand and realise where the club's at the moment, because this ain't going forwards.
Here's something I read the other day. We'll make more money from this new training top deal that they've got than what we'll get for winning the FA Cup.
It's
20 million a year, isn't it, that we're getting from that?
Yeah, so 20 million a year for a new kit sponsor. Can you just hazard a guess as to where that 20 million pounds will be going? It will be paying off their bloody debt loans because they have to pay interest on the debt every year and paying their dividends. Again, laughing to the bank. This is not money that's going into the club. How many times do people have to tell them? How many times do people have to tell fans? They want you to have the youth coming. Alanga, I feel sorry for him in the sense that he has to take that penalty because the reality is, in most sides, he's probably not in the squad because we have just got rid of Anthony Martial. We have just loaned him out to a title challenger. Oh, that's great, isn't it? So if he goes and wins a title now, it's going to look fantastic on the club, isn't it? That's going to look absolutely brilliant. It's just, honestly, it's saving wages. It's loaning people out so you can get a nice little, 500k loan fee with Van der Beek or a few £1 million with Martial, or it's selling players and keep the money from the sell-on clause when they eventually move on. It's just, It's a garbage narrative. I haven't been on the show for ages, so I just thought I'd mention that because I'm absolutely fed up of some of the fans being idiots. Thick. Honestly, the minimal brain cells in this fan base, it gives me nightmares. It's actually embarrassing.
Well, fair enough. We'll end on that nice little monologue that you've given us. Basically, fans are idiots and the academy is pointless. From Henry Bartlett,
Not
direct quotes.
pointless, but you know what I mean. Loan them out and then bring them back in.
I know what you mean. They're not ready yet. They will be in a couple of years. But yeah, I'm going to end it there. I hope everyone has enjoyed it, especially John and Henry. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for everyone who got involved in the comments. Always helpful to our discussion when you guys get involved. If you did enjoy, please remember to like and subscribe. Lots of content coming up for you the next couple of days with obviously the Southampton game. We'll have a preview, reaction show, all that jazz. So stay tuned for that. But until then, we'll see you next time.